Hello everyone, and welcome back to the series where I try to learn how to draw. Today I'm going to be going back through my Lesson 1 homework and exercises, going through Uncomfortable's critique of my work, and try to give some tips and tricks and answer some questions I've seen people ask in the subreddit about doing this lesson's homework. And I'm hoping that since it's still kind of fresh on my mind, I still remember the difficult parts for me and how I got through some of it, and that might be helpful for you guys. So I'm just going to be showing my exercises and reading his critique of them over it. So when I posted my first video on the subreddit, which contained exercises 1, 2, and 3, Uncomfortable replied to it and answered some of the questions I had raised during the video and gave me some critique. So this is what he said. About not being able to see the point you're drawing towards, that's something a lot of people struggle with, and it comes down largely to the fact that when you're executing a mark, we want to drive the stroke and motion from muscle memory alone. The conscious brain's time to play a role is over. It is relevant while laying out our points and determining how to go about ghosting through the motion. If you're relying on your eyes, then you're technically still depending on your brain to send commands. Once you've ghosted through the motion enough, that won't be required. From the looks of it though, you're doing well and showing improvement by the last page of planes. There's still room for improvement, but think of it as a multi-stage exercise. The first stage is to get the hang of executing your marks with the kind of confidence that keeps it smooth and its trajectory consistent. Second stage would be to ensure that the line is straight. Some people find that their marks arc a little, which is an issue I touch upon in the self-critique resources for Lesson 1. The third stage is to work on maintaining the confidence, smoothness, and straightness while keeping the stroke between the 2 points. And then he mentions that there is a Discord where people critique each other's work, which I highly recommend looking at. Look at the subreddit and look at the Discord. It's really helpful to see the kind of mistakes that other people make, so then you can ask why they're making them, maybe try to help them, and to not make those mistakes yourself. And I'm really glad that he touched upon my struggle with thinking about, well, if I'm supposed to be drawing from the opposite side of my dominant hand in a diagonal toward my dominant side, away from my body, I can't see where the other dot is, so how do I know if I'm going to the right place? And his answer to that is, your muscles are supposed to know it, not your brain. And you just have to practice that. Like, you're not supposed to be adjusting the trajectory as you go. You're supposed to, I guess, learn where it's going and know your body well enough that you know where you're supposed to be going and how to get there. I don't know how to do this quite well myself yet, but I understand what he's saying, and I know that I have to go through all of the, bad lines and missing the point that I'm drawing to before I realize, oh, last time I was trying to get there and I went low, so I need to go higher next time. It's not supposed to be something where you're looking at the tip of the pen go toward the dot. You're supposed to know where it's going before it hits the paper, I guess. I'm not quite sure how to explain it. So after I finished all the exercises, I submitted the pictures of my exercises to the thread where Uncomfortable will personally review them for you. And this is a service that he provides for his patrons, and I am a patron because I want to support his work. And also, if other people don't have the free money to be a patron and pay the $3, then I want them to see what an example of a critique would be. Maybe not on your work, but you've followed me as I've done the exercises, so you know what my thought process was and what I thought of my work, and you'll be able to see the critique that he has. I think it's really valuable to get critique from the actual teacher, someone who knows a lot more than you, because I did post it in the general subreddit as well, and mostly people just said, it looks perfect to me, it looks great, and stuff like that, but I do know that there is improvement to be had. I don't see anything wrong with it either, but that's just because I don't know enough. So I really appreciate him giving us the opportunity to learn from him and get our work critiqued. So I wrote, done with Lesson 1. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to submit everything or just my best versions of the work, so I just picked out the final few iterations of each exercise. Thank you so much. And here is his reply. Technically, students are only really expected to complete the assigned work in their recommended amounts. I don't necessarily want to encourage people grinding stuff out in order to be particularly impressive. The critiques are really about identifying issues in how one is approaching the exercises and assessing whether or not they've understood the point. Ultimately, they'll be incorporated into a regular warm-up routine. That said, as long as you're showing me the recommended amount, that's fine. Overall, you're doing quite well. While your superimposed lines are a little hesitant and slow, resulting in some wobbling/wavering instead of maintaining a smooth, consistent trajectory, you quickly remedy this with your ghosted lines. From then on, your line quality becomes considerably more confident, and this flows into your ellipses as well, helping to keep them evenly shaped. For your funnels, remember that part of the exercise is to vary your ellipses degrees over the course of the funnel. Toward the center, they should be getting very narrow, basically slimming down to a flat line, and toward the extremities, they should be getting more circular. Your rough perspective boxes are generally quite well done, and I'm glad to see that you're going back over your work to check on their alignment. That said, in my instructions, I say to extend the lines you've drawn back to where they'd intersect with the horizon line, rather than drawing them as they would have been had they been aligned correctly. By having all the intersection points with the horizon line, you can actually see more concretely which ones are further off the mark, and you can also identify certain trends. For example, a lot of people find that as they move further away from the vanishing point, they tend to make more mistakes. Also, watch your line quality here. I see a bit of a tendency to reinforce your lines automatically or to correct mistakes. Try to avoid any sort of reflexive drawing. Every mark you draw should be done so with the ghosting method, which means we need to think through every single mark. Drawing reflexively is a common habit people have, especially near the beginning, but it's one that you should work on. As for making corrections, often adding more ink to an area with a mistake will just draw more attention to it, so leaving it alone is usually best. You definitely improved considerably with your rotated boxes. The first attempt actually had a lot of the boxes that were running parallel to one another when they were meant to be rotated, but by the end you really got a solid grasp of the exercise. Your organic perspective boxes were a pretty solid attempt. There's definitely room for improvement here in terms of having lines converge consistently, but this is entirely expected, as these last two exercises are more about pushing students to think differently about 3D space and to break away from the rigidity of plotting everything out. I'm going to go ahead and mark these lessons as complete. I'd like you to move on to the 250 box challenge next. Be sure to read through all of the notes there and watch the video as well before starting the work. And since he prescribed to me the 250 box challenge, and he is Uncomfortable Sensei, I have been working on it. It's taking a lot longer than I thought it would. I was thinking like, oh, it'll be so simple, I'll just do 50 boxes a day for 5 days and I'll be done. No, they take a while. These boxes are taking a while, so it might be a little while until that video is finished. And so now I'm going to go through the exercises and try to answer as many questions as I've seen on the subreddit that I can. First of all, when people are starting off with their superimposed lines, they keep posting pictures of like 10 lines on one page and asking if they're doing okay or enough. He says to only complete as much homework as is assigned, but he says to do a page of them, so fill up that page. You're trying to learn, right? You're not going to learn unless you do it. So fill up the page a lot. I tried to fill up the page as much as I could, and I think it was helpful. And it takes that many until you can really get a hang of it, and so it really shows your skill. With the ghosting lines exercise, I think that you're supposed to go from the side opposite your dominant hand, close to your body, in a diagonal line away from you toward the dominant side. And like he said, you're going to have these issues with not being able to see where the line is, but what you're supposed to do is ghost over it enough times so that you should be able to do it from muscle memory instead of actually thinking about the line while you're drawing it. I guess that sounds weird. If anyone has any questions about that, direct them to me or post it on the subreddit, because that'll probably be better. I'm not an expert in this at all. My only claim to expertise is that I've done this before, which, you know, I guess is something. Same thing with the planes. You're supposed to turn the page around, so you're always drawing in the diagonal from near your body on your non-dominant side, away from your body toward the dominant side. And as far as the ellipses go, again, you're supposed to ghost over them and then draw through them a few times so that you get the practice of drawing the ellipse multiple times. It's like multiplying your practice in one single ellipse. It's very efficient, very cool, I like it. And as far as these funnels go, looking back on them, they're all about like the same width, and they just get taller and shorter. That's not how it should be. Toward the end, it should be like pretty much a full circle, and they should get skinnier and skinnier as they go toward the middle. For rough perspective, I checked my work in the wrong way. I guess I was just too used to the way we were doing it in my drawing class, and I just assumed that he wanted us to draw it from the corner down to the horizon line, I should have followed the line that I drew all the way back to the horizon line. So don't make the same mistakes that I do. And then as for the rotated boxes, I guess it's difficult, it's hard. I'm still not entirely sure how to explain how to do it. I guess the advice I have for the rotated boxes is to look at the original. It's not cheating, you're practicing. Don't worry about it. Look at the original, look at how it's done, look how much they're rotated. Then go back and do it on your own and think about how the inner edges and corners should be parallel to each other and turned as the box gets further away from the viewer. This is a little confusing. Let me know if you want an actual video explaining any of these exercises. Again, I'm not an expert, but I've done it before, and you see how well I can do it now. But I guess that's the advice I have. It's just more of a learning by doing kind of thing, you know? And then on the organic perspective, I'm not sure how I can give any advice on this. You saw how I really struggled and was doing really bad, and then I watched his video on how to actually draw boxes, and then I became better. So I guess my advice is learn how to draw boxes first before you try to draw rotated boxes, and everything will be better. So I hope that this was helpful for anyone, especially people who have followed me doing all these exercises and seen what his perspective on it was, because personally, being the one who did them, I was like, yeah, they look fine, they look perfect to me. But he definitely gave me a lot of constructive criticism that I hadn't thought about before, because I don't know enough to know more. And other people aren't as experienced enough to know as much as him. So I guess if you have the money, I would definitely recommend supporting this wonderful guy who has gifted us with these beautiful lessons and is giving us time out of his busy day to critique our work. But again, if you don't have the money to do that, you can watch my videos. I'll be submitting all my homework and stuff for critique by him so that I can make this resource for you guys. So when I'm done with the 250 box challenge, that video will come into existence, and of course I will get that critique as well. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great week!